I think a materialist approach to things is very, very consistent with my experience in Christian social justice.
I feel like the deeper I get into anarchist practice, the deeper my faith is getting at the same time.
I would hope that, securing means of life for all would be something all people of faith would say, oh yes, that's at the basis of what we believe.
Those who are most marginalized know the most about the true, the good, and the beautiful.
To me, it's less that I think building class solidarity is a bad thing, as much as it seems like if you don't attend to things like anti-Black racism, that's always going to get in the way of building class solidarity, actually.
And when you go back, you find that a lot of revolutionary grassroots participatory movements, the precursors to what you could call the barrio assemblies and these grassroots neighborhood organizations, a lot of these were sponsored by the church.
What does it mean to say that the Christian tradition is internally contradictory and there are antagonisms there and you're always being faithful to some aspects and betraying other aspects?
Welcome to the Magnificast, a podcast about Christianity and leftist politics. I'm your co-host, Matt Pernica.
I'm your other co-host, Dean Detloff.
Folks, I promise you that in the new year, you'll have a real episode from us that's not just us kind of getting psyched for Christmas, I guess. I don't know. Talking about bones. You will, though. We have a great interview coming up, and you're going to flip your lid about it when you hear it. But this week, we're still just kind of getting into the Christmas season. So just try to have a good time with it. You can listen to this podcast as you can like hide it under the table and put your earbud in when you're at your family Christmas dinner and your annoying uncles talking about vaccines or whatever it is that annoying uncles talk about these days. Haven't been around one in a while. I'm not sure what they are. I don't know what the uncle talking points are anymore, but you can listen to this podcast instead.
Yeah, it's pretty important. This is also going to give you some good niece or nephew, or whatever the gender non-binary term for niece and nephew is. It's going to give you your own talking points. And when the uncle is doing something, is about to talk about something wild, you can just be like, hang on a minute, I've got something even more wild and exciting to tell you about. I feel like that's going to be the deflecting move this holiday season.
That's true. You could always interrupt somebody else and say, have you heard about St. Nicholas's leaky bones?
Yeah, that's going to get a lot of head turns at the family Christmas party. Also, just to bring ourselves into the Magnificast RPG, the fiction of this podcast, Matt, I'll just kind of take you down once again into the basement full of bones. As people know, in the fiction of this podcast, we do have a giant many storied tall family life center, and in the basement of it I've been rearranging it to be a reproduction of the Capuchin crypt in Rome, and we currently have a lot of Spirit Halloween skeletons that are still here. They're a bit dusty, it's been a couple months, but still trying to attract people to kind of put it in their will that their skeletons could replace these fake ones with real ones over time. It's a long-term project. It's going to be at least 30-40 years, I think. But I think we can do it. And Matt, I just want to know what you think of the Christmas holiday decorations down here.
Well, let me just say, it's very respectful in the way that you've put Santa hats on all of the skeletons. I didn't think that would work. I thought that would come off and look kind of tacky, but you've proved me wrong once again. It looks great. I'm simultaneously thinking about my death and perhaps resurrection, theology willing, and also Santa Claus in the festive season. Wow, what a great achievement.
Yeah, it took a long time to find the right balance. I did put a few Rudolph red noses on some of them and decided against that. That didn't seem very attractive. I tried some antlers. I had a couple of kind of pointy shoes on a few of these big skeletons, and none of them were really working. So I feel like we've gone with a minimalist approach here. But I feel like it's working out. We do have some leftover Halloween decorations, and I'm not sure those are quite working. Initially, I had a handful of bats kind of arranged as though they were carrying the sleigh of one of these big skeletons, but I put them away for now. So we'll workshop it again before next Christmas. But for now, I think this is the decor that we can handle.
Sort of a seeker-sensitive church, specifically for teens that shop at Hot Topic who are really into the Nightmare Before Christmas. You've nailed the Nightmare Before Christmas aesthetic perfectly.
That's right, and this one is a Nightmare on Christmas. So people will also know from last week we did plan to bring some yucky St. Nicholas facts for this special Christmas episode, and we have some of those loaded. They're around here. Loaded, an intentionally threatening kind of way of putting this. We've got some other content, some Reddit questions, and I think it's just going to be a nice episode to lean in to the Christmas season. Matt, do you want to get us started with maybe just one? How should we do this? Should we just do one yucky St. Nicholas fact every once in a while, or should we get them out of the way all up front?
Oh, great question. No, let's do the Reddit questions first, and then we can do St. Nicholas facts. My St. Nicholas facts teeter on the edge of St. Nicholas facts and old and ancient news. So I think it'd be great for the latter part of this episode. Let me give you my first Reddit question right now. So I have one that's Christmassy, and I have one that's just sort of a theological concept, and I'm going to give you the theological concept first. This was asked 24 minutes ago on reddit.com/r/Christianity, and the question is, why can't God just kill Satan? Kind of a dumb question, a childish question. I know it's been asked a lot. Has it? It just doesn't make sense to me. He was willing to wipe out humans if they did bad things in the Old Testament. Why not just kill the devil? So couldn't God save a lot of time in this whole situation if he just killed the devil? What do you think?
Yeah, it is a fair question to say God was willing to kill all these people but didn't kill the devil. I've never really thought about that, and I think that's brilliant. You should definitely bring that to your next Sunday school RCIA lesson, see what the teacher has to say about that one. That's wild. I think the reason, though, that God doesn't kill the devil is actually a really important bureaucratic functionary. That's one thing that we've learned from medieval philosophy and from contemporary philosophy. The angels and devils, they're really just kind of paper pushers in the bureaucracy of heaven. The devil's an annoying one. He's a big bother, but God can't really kill him because he needs him. He has a special job to do. He goes around and he points fingers at people like Job or others, and he's like, I bet I can ruin that guy's whole situation, and I'll hate you. And it's important for God to have such a kind of designated attorney or prosecutor. I guess he'd be the prosecutor in this case. So that's just his role. He was elected to it, I guess, at some point, and that's the role he's got to play.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I was going to bring up Job as well, that, he's just a guy with a job to do, and God's not going to kill him quite yet, I guess. Maybe never, in fact. I think having to do the sort of bureaucratic job that you're destined to fail at is probably worse than death anyways.
True.
Everyone in the comments has a complete, awful, and unimaginative answer to this. If the devil didn't exist, would we no longer be able to sin? No, of course you would. The devil's not the one making you do that stuff.
That's right. God is a big fan of blues music, and if you killed the devil, there wouldn't be any cool deals to make at the crossroads.
Yeah, okay. That's a great point.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pivot this one into a new question. Now, we've been talking about relics, and I feel like this is a bit late for the Christmas season, but if you're looking to get a relic for that person in your life, first of all, don't do that. It's illegal. But let's just say, for the sake of this podcast, you are. I feel like it's important for us to get a better understanding of these relics, these goofy objects, and what better way than to go to Reddit again. Now, I liked searching the term relic on Our Christianity because it's an ecumenical space. It's not just a Catholic space. And there are a couple of interesting questions just sort of put out into the ether here. The first one is there such a relic that allows you to physically see Jesus? And it does have a spoiler tag on it, which I thought was kind of an interesting choice. I did click the spoiler tag. It's just the body of the text, which is honestly not really worth reading. But I feel like it has a great sort of function of what this relic might do. It's kind of like clicking the spoiler tag on seeing Jesus Christ. So Matt, do you think that relics give us these kinds of abilities? And what might be I'm kind of riffing on the question here, but what might be some great relic superpowers you might obtain?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to make sure I say it, and everybody listening to this podcast already knows, you can see Jesus Christ anytime you want to, whenever you look into the face of the poor and the oppressed. So there's that to consider. I don't know, in case you wanted to see Jesus Christ, that's just a way to do it. Okay, but in this other sort of more interesting anime world that you've just created, where you do get a relic that does something magical, that seems great. Of course, you've got Saint Timothy's Ray-Bans, and you put those on, and you can see Jesus. You can is there a patron saint of like shoes or jumping or basketball? You could get Saint Michael's secret stuff. I don't know. Slurp that down. You can do a big jump. I think if you got like Saint Francis's robes, you could talk to the birds. I think that probably that makes sense to me.
That's a good one. I like. Okay, who's that one saint who doesn't have a head? I guess there's a bunch of them. What are they called? Stepho something. Michelle Sayre has a whole thing about it. What am I thinking about?
Well, what are
who
they
cares?
Called? I don't remember.
There's a bunch of saints who don't have a head, and they carry their head around like a like a baseball or a basketball. A baseball would be too small to put on your armpit, like a basketball. Right. And anyway, imagine having a relic from one of these people, and then you could just sort of pop your head on and off like a party trick, no problem at all. I feel like that'd be a kind of weird, interesting, cool relic you could carry around.
That'd be cool. What if you had like St. Anthony's bag of holding, and you can never lose anything you put into it?
That sounds good. Or you can pull anything that's lost out of it.
Oh man, that's like a Dungeons and Dragons item that I will use in my next campaign. That sounds rad, actually.
Yeah. I also think, we do have some kind of goofy saints out there. I love thinking of like St. Jude, the patron saint of lost causes. What's the kind of special power you get from such a saint? Maybe, I don't know, you get sort of one genie wish, one lost cause that you can just sort of overcome. I feel like those are the kind of relics I'm after. It's kind of like a Dragon Ball. You get enough of St. Jude's relics, and then you can have one big wish.
If you put all of St. Thomas Aquinas back together with his bones, you can ask him one question about the Summa.
That's right. And it's going to be wild.
I would actually like to keep those apart. I don't want to know the answers.
That's right. There's a whole separate group of people who are trying to make sure that people do not get their hands on all these relics at once.
A fantastic Dungeons and Dragons setup, for sure. The people who are trying to keep the saints and relics apart. I like that. This is great. I'm ready to roll some dice about this one.
Good. We'll keep workshopping these, keep thinking about them. Put a few more in the Discord. Maybe one day we'll make a great zine of all these kind of superhero origin stories. There's a lot of zine ideas on this podcast that will never be made, but I feel like if I just say enough of them, someone might make one and I'll be able to enjoy it.
Exactly. There will be there'll be a week of time where you don't have to work and you'll be like, oh, I better make a zine. That's the Dean Detloff way for sure.
It is a dangerous Christmas season, I gotta say.
Nice. Okay. Here's my second Reddit question, a big one. In the manger, you've got all the guys in there. You got, most importantly, Jesus. He's at the center. You might be familiar. Is it blasphemy if you were to put a Christmas hat on little baby Jesus?
I gotta say no, because I do have a Caganer from Spain, one of those little kids who's pooping a little statue of a little kid pooping that you put in your nativity, and that seems fine. Everybody loves it. I feel like a Santa Claus hat is pretty tame.
But on baby Jesus, though, is that okay? Like, of course, on the Caganer, it's great. The Caganer is just you or I, and we're all pooping in the manger. But but Jesus specifically?
I think it would be fine. It would be chronologically confusing because you don't get Santa Claus without the baby Jesus dying. So I feel like you're kind of messing with the timeline a little bit. And so in terms of the canon of the nativity, you're adding a bit of weird fan fiction. You're sort of assuming some time travel that I feel like it just depends on how comfortable you are messing with the actual narrative itself. But in general, I think it's fine.
Personally, I'm pretty comfortable with that. However, the people in the comments of this Reddit question are not. They don't like this idea. In case I don't know, you probably could have guessed that. Well, some of them don't care. But one of them, and a few of them, to be honest, said that Jesus is the real gift giver, which I'm not sure if that checks out. But that the word Santa is a bunch of letters that you can align differently without adding or moving letters. What you might call an anagram. This person doesn't quite know that word. That's fine. And you can get the word Satan. So something to consider.
True.
Okay, Jesus is the real gift giver is like a thing that I think Christians like to say. You know, sort of the anti-Santa Christians like to say this idea. And I don't know, Jesus is giving some gifts in his life, like loaves and fishes, but like that's not Christmas gifts. I
never got a little box under the tree that said "From Jesus" ever, so it's just not true.
No. And
also, if you rearrange the words or the letters in the word Jesus, you get Segus. So checkmate.
Wait. Oh, okay. Good point.
Yeah, I feel like that's an open and shut case. I've got another one for you here. This is if my grandma/grandpa are Christian. Okay, that's the first thing you got to think about. If that's the case, and enter heaven after death, some important conditionals here. Will their relics be those of a saint? And the body of the text is, will their relics be those of a holy saint, and can they support against bad spirits, parentheses, demonic?
Okay.
So your grandma and grandpa, they are Christian. They died, and they went to heaven after they died. Are their relics able to be used? Should you go dig up a finger from your grandma and point that at a demon that tries to get you?
Okay, so it's been established within the lore of this podcast, but I think theologically it's sound, right? That when you go to heaven, you become a saint. You get you see the beatific vision, and that's it. But the thing that makes your body on earth sort of powerful in terms of being a relic is that you also lived like a particular like holy life, right?
Well, I mean, that's a great question.
I mean, some saints though are kind of dicks, so I don't know.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, how long do you have to be good and nice to store up enough power, enough juice in your bones to be able to do something cool afterwards? Like, if you're a saint, but really you just got really holy in the last like couple years of your life, did some pretty impressive stuff, a few miracles, and then you die, are your relics as potent as like somebody who, you know, led a very long life? They have kind of a storehouse of holy energy, and then they die.
Right. Okay, I hear what you're saying, but what if only in the last few years you started doing sort of holy things?
Right.
Which indicates that all the time before that, you had a lot of that energy saved up in your body that you just weren't using.
Whoa.
So what I'm saying is that if you haven't done anything nice or holy or miraculous, you have more holy and saintly energy in your body.
I don't know. I think you're having a very kind of weird Platonist idea here, where you start out with a set of it that you express over time, a kind of finite pool, if you will. And I want to say it's a generative power that you've got to accrue it over time. And maybe there are ways to get a big burst of it. Maybe you do a super miracle and you can generate even more of it. That's how you kind of close the gap.
Okay. I'm willing to believe this instead of my idea.
Okay, so your grandma did that. Your grandma, she was nice her whole life. And at the very end, she even did something really nice. Like, I don't know what she did. She miraculously made some cookies and pulled them out of the oven, and she never even put anything inside the oven. That's the miracle that she did. So she's dead. You got her tongue, and when a demon comes into your room, can you kind of lick it with that tongue? And is that going to work, or are you going to be pretty embarrassed in front of that evil spirit?
Is that going to work? Yeah, it's going to work for sure. I think that's exactly right. And, you know, it doesn't have to be your grandma's tongue. I think that I don't know about that one. I don't know about grandma's tongue, but I don't know. We do this kind of stuff all the time with people who've recently passed away, and we take their clothes and we hold on to them for a long time, and they probably ward off evil spirits. Maybe we just don't even know, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think the clothes thing is good and fine, but I'm talking first class relics. I'm talking a demon comes into your room and you're just about to go to sleep. You just brush your teeth. You're like, I do not want to deal with this tonight. And so you reach over and you grab the little reliquary where you're holding your grandpa's mustache. You slap that onto your upper lip and you just look at that demon and it turns and runs out of the way, and then you put it back safely in the reliquary. Is that going to work?
Yeah, I mean, it will work, but but there's like a sort of big calculus that you have to do here. And the calculus is, would you rather deal with a demon in your room, or would you rather touch your recently deceased grandpa's mustache and put it on your face? So,
right.
I mean, from my perspective, I'm 100% going to deal with that demon every single time. I think that's, right. I mean, that's, me as a person, and maybe you are different, but I'm not going to touch the mustache is my whole thing.
Yeah. That's fair. I mean, it really depends on the demon. I think it really depends on the demon.
Right. Well, the scarier the demon, the more likely I would be to touch the mustache.
Yeah, that's right. I won't make you answer what the threshold of that kind of fear would have to be, what kind of demon would in fact make you do that, but
it would have to be pretty scary.
I think it's great that we did finally get down to the fact of the matter here, which is that if your grandma and grandpa are Christian and they enter heaven after death, their relics will be those of a saint.
That checks out to me.
Okay, and then the follow-up question. You have passed. Obviously, after me, it's really important that I outlive you because I don't want to live in a world without my friend Matt. You've passed, and I'm at your funeral. What kind of relic am I allowed to take home? If you had to pick like a good relic to give somebody, what should I have in my little Matt Bernico reliquary?
It would be such a funny conversation for you to have to talk to my wife and be like, no, it's okay. He said, definitely take my knuckle bone. That's fine.
He said it. It's on a podcast. I'll play it for you. It will hold up in court. I get it.
Yeah, she might just let you do it. I think like at that point she's had too much of my shit, I think. Yeah. I don't know. I think the idea of having a few knuckle bones out there is kind of cool. Maybe if you could bones seem good. I would love it if it were not sort of my fleshy parts. That's probably too much. But whatever thing kills me, that might be part of it too. That if I get killed by a spear, for example, right, you could probably snatch that up.
That's pretty good. And then I'll just check like every Christmas to see if the blood at the end of it has turned back into liquid or not. That's
right. Or if there's any juice flowing from my bones.
Right. There definitely will be. Whether or not anyone will want it, I guess that's the second question.
Cool. Yeah. Well, wow. Speaking of that, a great segue. Oh, sorry, Dean. What about yours? What relics would you like to bequeath to the world?
What would I bequeath? Probably St. Clair. You can get her hair. We saw it in Rome. So I feel like my mustache is probably the one. I'd probably say, well, I don't know. I feel like that's such a integral part of me that maybe it should stay with me after death.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably a big toe. I feel like that's a really identifiable and goofy relic. You could put that on your shelf. Having a big toe in there would be good.
It would be on my shelf. Everyone would come to my house and I'd say, look, it's uncorruptible. This toe is going to stay good forever.
Here's a true story that also reveals a window into how insane my actual family is. But I will keep who participates in this story anonymous for their own sake. A family member of mine, one time when I was a kid, I was at their house and they asked if I wanted to see something cool, a dangerous question, to which I obviously answered yes. And they showed me a thumb inside a jar of formaldehyde that apparently was a thumb of somebody that they knew, and the person whose thumb it was lost it in a bet to this other person, to my family member. and they refuse to give it back. And I think that is one of the funniest things. Extremely tragic. A huge dick move. Also, I clarified, does this person want it back? Yes, they do. They want their thumb back. But this family member said they want it fair and square. And I feel like that is so fun. That's why you need a relic, just to be able to, like, freak out your other family members. Do you want to see something cool? That's the point of having one. Again, to clarify, you should not have one. Nobody is allowed to have them, but wouldn't it be cool?
If you lose it in a bet, you lose it in a bet. I don't know what there's to do about that.
That's fair and square.
Speaking of no one should have them, let me tell you about some people who do have them and where and the troubling places you could find them yourself. All right, so last week on this podcast, we did talk a lot about St. Nicholas, his life, and how he may or may not have saved pickled boys and brought them back to life. Okay, so
Right.
one of the topics of conversation last week was that St. Nicholas's bones, they produce a substance every year called manna that sorry, I'm having a hard time vocalizing exactly this thing. It's called
This
manna.
is what separates the Catholics from the Protestants.
Yeah. that's probably fair. So his bones produce manna, and this is a thing that other saints' bones do as well. There's not a Wikipedia page listing them all out, and I think that sucks, and I'm probably going to get on that. We need a catalog of whose bones emit what oils. Okay, anyway, so St. Nicholas's bones, they emit manna. There's a particular like day of the year on May 9th called the Feast of Translation, where the liquid is gathered on that day. So there's a special day where they do take it. So anyways, I wanted to know more about this. I decided that was something that I needed to spend some time doing. So I have two explanations of the juice from St. Nicholas's bones I would like to share with you. One is a secular source, and then one is a theological source. And I'm using the words theological source very loosely here because it's Catholic Answers. So anyways, let's start here at the top. This is from Britannica.com, so an online encyclopedia that's not Wikipedia because there's not a lot of it. This is the best source I could find. Listen, it's fine. So there's a substance that comes from St. Nicholas's bones. What exactly then is the substance that's been emitted by St. Nicholas's relics for hundreds of years and that has been regularly extracted each May since 1980? So a long time of extraction.
Mm-hmm.
Britannica says this: once believed to be an oil, the liquid oozing from St. Nicholas's bones in Barry was found by scientists at the University of Barry in 1925 to be water. In all likelihood, it forms as condensation due to the tomb's location underground in a port city. Despite this seemingly less miraculous revelation about the substance's composition, many still believe it has curative powers and sacredness. Robert Bartlett, an expert on the veneration of saints. First of all, that title makes no sense to me. Like, how do you get to be an expert on everyone, if you're venerating a saint, you're probably an expert in it. Anyways, this guy, he explains that for devotees, relics are simply objects that had been in contact with the saint during his or her lifetime and objects that had been in contact with the saint's tomb. Hence, as long as the manna is collecting on the bones, it's imbued with the holiness.
Nice.
So there it is. The liquid coming from the bones is not magical. It's just water because it's in a damp and humid place. The other saint that I do know for sure that does have manna coming from their bones is Saint Andrew, who's some of the relics. The relics are kind of everywhere, but also stored in a port city by the ocean. So like, I don't know. That tracks to me. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
I'd also like to comment really quickly. So the term that's used for this, the stuff that comes out of the bones is manna, which obviously has some connections to the Old Testament and so on. But I was looking into it a bit more, and in the sort of medieval ages, manna was used as it had like medicinal purposes. So it would, it was dew that would just kind of like collect on plants or whatever. But like all kinds of medieval theologians and doctors thought it was, you drink it and you got better. So that's something. Right. So what I'm saying is that you could drink the juice from the bones, but you probably shouldn't. Okay.
Unless you're sick.
Yeah, okay. Great point. Do you have any other thoughts before I move on to the Catholic Answers answer?
No, let's get it all on the table, and then we'll parse it out a little more.
Okay, here we go. This is from Catholic Answers, everyone's favorite website. This is from the encyclopedia portion of the Catholic Answers website, and the entry title is Oil of Saints, an oily substance which is said to have flowed or still flows from the relics of burial places of certain saints. These oils are or have been used by the faithful with the belief that they will cure bodily and spiritual ailments, not through any intrinsic power of their own, but through the intercession of the saints with whom the oils have some connection. In the days of St. Paulinus of Nola, the custom prevailed of pouring oil over the relics or reliquaries of martyrs and then gathering it in vases, sponges, or pieces of cloth. This oil was distributed among the faithful as a remedy against sickness. There's some more stuff down here. There's a whole bunch of different examples of this being the case, but I think that practice is the one that I would like to zero in on really quickly. So the stuff coming off the bones is not important. It could be anything. You could pour oil over the bones. It could just be water collecting from the air. The point is that it's the liquid touching the bones, and then you get the liquid, and then it's magic. So that is great. Illuminating. I had been under the assumption this whole time that maybe people thought that the liquid was like, the miracle itself was that the liquid was appearing on the bones, but that's the normal part. No, don't worry about that. That's how it's supposed to work. The magic part is just taking it off the bones and giving it to other people.
This makes me really feel like we're squandering an entrepreneurial opportunity, because it seems like there's a lot of water out there and a lot of relics out there. You get these things together and you've got a small cottage industry on your hands. And why not also get it a little exciting? Have some holy Gatorade, package that up. Special, seasonal Mountain Dew that you can only get at church. I feel like there's just such a great branding opportunity.
St. Michael's special stuff. That's what I'm saying. It is a water bottle, and it's been poured over the bones. All right, I have some terribly bad news for you though about that very idea, Dean. So, as soon as I learned that you could just kind of pour liquid over the bones, and then that was it, I went to eBay.com and I looked and see if I could find any of the liquid, and it is all too available out in the world, unfortunately. Just in the last few days, I've seen at least 3 different listings on eBay where you can get a small prayer card of St. Nicholas with a little, in some cases, it's like a little plastic container that has the water in it. Or in some cases, there's just a little piece of cloth sandwiched in with the card that has been dipped in the water itself.
Incredible.
So you can buy that on eBay. I saw one for as little as $8, and then the one that I'm looking at now is $15. So that's pretty upsetting, I think. I don't know exactly what to say about that. But the description is that it contains a small piece of cloth used to wrap the saint's bones during the ceremony to collect the holy manna from the tomb where the bones are kept, which takes place every May 9th. So kind of triangulating my sources here between the Britannica entry, the Catholic Encyclopedia, Catholic Answers, and then this eBay page, that checks out. Checks out. Wait, no, one more thing. And then if you do kind of go down a little bit, the person who is selling this relic for sale, so that's bad. A lot of them are just prayer cards and things, which a little bit of cloth that was dipped in the bones, the bone juice. That seems fine to me. but like there are more upsetting types of relics that are for sale. But before I get to the other upsetting relics, there are lots of comments that people have given as seller feedback on the on the bone juice. Excellent seller, highly recommend. Exactly as described. This item arrived in perfect condition. Items exactly as described. Fast shipping. Thank you. Just the idea that you're commenting this on eBay on the website over the bone juice that has been delivered to your house by a courier is wild. Damn. Okay. Sorry, Dean. Now let me get your feedback. It's all out on the table.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts. The first one is I got to read more about the transitive property of relics and holiness, because like if you touch the bones, whether on purpose or by accident, I feel like, then your hands are going to be holy, pretty special. Like, why can't you just hack this whole situation, get yourself holy, and then just sort of touch whatever you want? I feel like that's a real superpower that we're not leveraging. So there must be a rule against that.
When we went to Rome, they didn't want you to touch the stuff, though. Probably for that very reason.
No, they didn't. But somebody, that's true. But somebody has to do it. Like, the way, okay, like some bones are just a pile of bones. That, I guess, you could just kind of like, you could get a sheet underneath that and you could move the pile, because at the end of the day, it's just going to be a pile. But there are some relics that have obviously been touched by a person. So, I don't know, they make you wear gloves, or hard to say. But I want to figure out the mystery of that. Secondly, I think that these liquids should be called teas and not a mana. And I think that's also a proposal I'm going to send to Pope Leo. I think he's new. He's looking for fresh ideas. He wants to shake things up in the church. And I'm going to write him a letter and say, look, why don't we start talking about some holy tea? TEA. This is stuff that we're steeping. We're steeping the bones into this water, and we can sell that around. I just feel like this is a good entrepreneurial opportunity. Some holy reliquary tea.
Spill the tea. Great idea. Let me just bring this whole segment to a close with one more news story that you're gonna love. This is from a Canadian newspaper called The Globe and Mail, and I'm sure that's bad. I'm sure it's a bad one. There aren't any good ones.
They're one of the worst. They're
okay, of course. Well, anyways. The title of this article is Canada Returns Holy Relics of St. Nicholas, who inspired Santa Claus, to Italy after they were bought on eBay.
Okay, that happened this year. I remember that happening at some point, though I do not remember literally anything.
Okay, well, let me tell you all about it right now. So, in a mystery spanning centuries, relics of St. Nicholas, who inspired Santa Claus, has been last seen in an Italian basilica almost 1,000 years ago, have been seized in Canada by border agents and flown back to Italy. Thank you for your service, border agents, for doing this. It must have been the most exciting day at the Canadian border.
Oh, big time.
Okay. The sacred artifact, believed by some pilgrims to have miraculous properties, were discovered in Canada after being bought on eBay by a private individual who imported them illicitly from Italy in 2020. In what marks the climax of an elaborate investigation involving Canadian heritage officials, the Canada Border Services Agency, the Italian Embassy in Canada, Italy's cultural authorities, and experts in sacred objects, the relics and reliquary holding them were transported back to Italy. They included a bone of St. Nicholas, the early Christian saint who lived 1,600 years ago, who we know as Santa Claus. The bone was contained within an ornate cylindrical glass tube. The bone was wrapped in a golden piece of cloth, and then there was a little statue depicting St. Nicholas. So there it goes. It's back in Italy. A real Indiana Jones type moment. Folks, do not sell this kind of stuff on eBay. What are you thinking? That's the most bonkers thing I can imagine.
That's so wild. But also the idea that you would buy it on eBay is wild. I think the idea of actually buying a relic is so weird to me, because you have to, I guess, like, there's like two controlling assumptions operating at the same time. I mean, there are many, but let's say there are these two. A, you believe that they are cool and important and maybe even magic. But B, you also know that you shouldn't buy them. So, like, if you bought them, you'd be in trouble. Like, what's the point of having St. Nicholas's, left molar or something? Like, why would you want that?
Right.
I guess as a piece of trivia. You could put it in your oddities shop.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you are the type of person who does think it is magic, you know that it's bad to have it. But I guess just the desire to be like chatting up a honey at the bar and be like, do you want to come see this crazy guy's tooth I have? I mean, I don't know, man. It could work.
That's wild. Some related CanCon, that's Canadian content for those of you out there who are not in this country. I was also researching more about relics in Canada. There are a lot of them, including nearby in London, Ontario. These are illicitly obtained. I found this CBC article from, when was it? 2018. And I didn't know this, but apparently there are over 250 relics, including fragments of bone and teeth that once belonged to revered Roman Catholics in a basement in London, Ontario. And there are many things about it, but one of my favorite bits in this article is when the person who is responsible for, I don't know, curating, archiving, or whatever, maintaining this library of body parts says, we've got a round circle here with some very pretty detail. This person says, holding up a first-class relic with decorative beading. Unfortunately, there's the remains of 5 saints in there, but it's an old one and it's faded, so I'm unable to know who it belongs to. So I really like that. I love the idea of just having a relic where you're like, well, somebody's in here. In fact, 5 guys and gals are in here. Who are they? No idea. Not sure what's in there, but look at those beads. Looking pretty good.
Looking pretty good. That's a tragedy. Sucks. It sucks not to know who they belong to.
Probably I've mentioned this on the show before, but I feel like the more you know that there are relics around, the more it is very fun to go on a relic scavenger hunt, and you kind of discover that they are everywhere. In fact, because I work at a Catholic organization, I was once in a building having a bunch of meetings, and it was only at the end of the week that I realized that every single day I'd been passing by the heart of a saint that was also in this small chapel on the way to I don't know, going through an agenda where you're trying to stay awake after lunch. And I think that is the best part about relics. I just love the absurd mundanity of it all. I mean, you go to Rome, you see a big beautiful skull and a big beautiful case, but I like the idea that there's just kind of relics you'd walk on by.
It's great. A little bit of magic in the world, but it's somebody's heart.
All right, before we go to Yucky St. Nicholas stuff, which we are definitely going to do, I did just want to send you an article. Now, this does in part depend on being a visual medium, so I guess I'll depend on you to describe it a bit here, Matt. This is an article with the top 10 Christian weird relics that I found, and really just number 10 is the one I'd like you to look at. Now, this is the head of St. Oliver Plunkett, a real name of a real saint. And it is especially troubling.
Okay, I'm opening it up. There are 3 classes of Christian relics. The first class are that they are directly associated with Jesus. The second are items owned by a saint. And the third is any item or object that has been in contact with a first or second class relic. So if you were, sorry, I'll get to the saint in a second because it's a really gross picture that you sent me on my phone. But if you were to start going around and touching other saintly objects, you would become a third relic, a third class relic yourself. Okay.
Right.
So what you sent me here on my phone, Dean, is the head of St. Oliver Plunkett, who is apparently a saint. And it's his face is what you've sent me. It's just it's just a glass box containing his face.
Yeah.
That sucks what you've done to me.
If you read the description, I think you'll find that your encounter with this could be a lot worse. So I'll just go ahead and read part of it here. Oliver Plunkett was an Irish Catholic archbishop who died as the last victim of the popish plot in which he was falsely accused of treason against the Protestant king, Charles II. What a loser. Oliver Plunkett was hung, drawn, and later quartered in 1681. The martyr's head was supposedly brought to Rome, then hidden until 1921 in a nunnery of Drogheda, led by the martyr's grandniece. So first of all, they just put it somewhere for 300 years. According to the story, the saint's decapitated head was thrown into the nearby fire and quickly rescued by Plunkett's friends. The fire left a slight scorch mark on the saint's left cheek. Today, the relic of his head, together with some of his bones, reside in St. Peter's Church in Drogheda, Ireland. That's surely not how you pronounce that, but too bad. Which since 1995 is also the national shrine to the saint. So you can go ahead and check that out. Also, next to the relic itself, it says we can view the original authentication document signed shortly after the saint's martyrdom. So we do have a certificate of authenticity for this thing. Don't even worry about taking it to the Antiques Roadshow. We know this one. It's real. It definitely looks like a head that did get thrown in the fire. And I'm kind of surprised that 300 years later, it still does just look like a guy.
It really does look like a guy. I'm glad that there's a statement of authenticity, because otherwise I don't know if I'd believe it. That doesn't look like Oliver Plunkett.
And okay, I said that'd be the last thing before Yucky St. Nick stuff, but actually one last final thing. I did also get curious about sort of why, what's the origin of relics and where do we get them? And there are many very funny Catholic stories about it. But there is an attempt to root them in the Bible, and I think it's great. So I'll read a quick passage here from 2 Kings 2:14. Then he took the mantle of Elijah that had fallen from him and struck the water, saying, "Where is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" And when he had struck the water parted to the one side and to the other, and Elisha went over. So this is one pretty thin approach, I think, to just be like, well, some guy touched something physically, and so therefore that is what it is. A stronger piece of evidence here comes from Acts 19:11-12. God did extraordinary miracles by the hands of Paul, so that handkerchiefs or aprons were carried away from his body to the sick, and diseases left them, and the spirits came out of them. Now that one is pretty convincing. That is St. Paul's secret stuff.
That's it's biblical, folks. Tell your evangelical friends the bad news.
That's right. It's biblical. But my favorite one comes from another bit from 2 Kings 13:20-21. Once, while some Israelites were burying a man, suddenly they saw a band of raiders. So they threw the man's body into Elisha's tomb, as one does. When the body touched Elisha's bones, the man came to life and stood up on his feet. I don't remember that story at all, and it is extremely funny. I love it. So there you have it. Just touch the right bones, and you too could come back to life.
Amazing. I love that. Before we get to the St. Nick relics, let me. I had to go to London for union business not too long ago, and getting from Scotland to London is kind of a task. So I took the sleeper train, which was rad. Love it. I love being on trains all the time, and if I get to sleep on the train, incredible. Anyways, so I got off the train in London, and it was like, I don't know, 6:30 in the morning, because we got there extremely early. And I was walking through London by Euston Station, if you know it. If you know it. And right across the street from there is University College of London, and I was kind of like in a daze looking for any place I could get coffee from that early, and I stumbled past the window of one of these college buildings, and I saw Jeremy Bentham's body in there.
Right.
And the doors were locked because it was so early in the morning, so I just saw him through the glass, and I think that's kind of like this. It is sort of a relic if you think about it.
Yeah, it's sort of a relic. It's definitely a Protestant
relic. The bad kind? Yeah. Of course.
That's very funny. Okay, on to yucky St. Nicholas facts. We had homework in between, and Matt, do you want to go first and kind of bring?
Oh no, I've already given mine. Mine
right.
were the bone facts. Yeah.
My brain is just so stuck in the reliquary that it's hard to remember anything else.
I'm just thinking about Thomas Plunkett's face. That's all I can think of.
Okay, I got a couple things I dug up about Saint Nick. One is related to his own bones. So this translation you were talking about, they keep on doing it, and they moved Saint Nick's bones because the Turks had taken over the place where he was, so they moved him around. There's a story about how the sailors only took the main bones of St. Nicholas's skeleton, leaving the minor fragments in the grave. And eventually the Catholics decided that's not good enough. So they went back and they got the rest of the bones, and then they kind of spread them around. There's a legend though that says someone dies every time the bones of St. Nicholas in Venice are disturbed. And the last time the bones were examined was in July 1992. I feel like that's such a great premise for a horror plot or Benoit Blanc's next big mystery. That's going to be a good one. So that's pretty cool.
So when they're disturbed, but just when they open up the tomb every year to get the water off the bones, that doesn't count?
I don't think that counts because that's not disturbing. That's cool.
Not disturbing. That's normal.
That's
Getting
not
the water from
disturbing.
bones is normal.
It's normal, regular, and people want this stuff, so no problem. So we've got that going. There's also, I looked up, there are just so many bones of St. Nicholas kind of around in so many parts and pieces. I feel like probably this is the case with many, but, starting to look into it, there's just a lot. There's a website called stnicholascenter.org. Who knows how reputable it is, but for the purpose of this podcast, it is absolutely authoritative for the next 20 minutes. They list a whole kind of whack of relics ranging from all the classes, 1 to 3. But it's funny because they'll be like, so this place, they've got one, for example, here's in Germany, there's one that in the cathedral treasury has a finger in it. Normal, regular stuff. Then you keep on going, and there's one in Venice, and it will be like smaller bones missed in the sailor's haste. That's the one I was just talking about. So we know that. The sailors left some behind. They went and got them. The more you go,
these
there's
are the
just
leftover bones, the ones that we just didn't care enough about to get out of the grave.
We got the major bones, we didn't get the rest. There's one though in Russia, they list that it was there, but it was stolen from a relic icon in August 2012. So that one, it's out there.
It's on eBay.
It's on eBay. That's right. You got to put your deer hunter hat on and Sherlock Holmes style go find that one. The weirdest Nicolas Cage movie. Many others, different kinds. What I didn't get to do today, but what I would have liked to do, is go through and count up how many fingers are listed on this website, because I do kind of feel like it's more than 10. So who knows? Probably there's a lot going on out there, but I really like that we've just got a lot of opportunities to see Saint Nick wherever we might be. You don't have to go to the North Pole. You can just go to the big cathedral in whatever country you live in, and I'm sure you can get your hands on a piece of old Saint Nick.
Wow. AI generated Saint Nicholas. He's got more than 10 fingers. He's got 12. He's got 13. Who can say?
That's right. And finally, some other stuff from my own homework here. So last time we were talking about this wild story where Saint Nick, he stumbled on a butcher who had killed these kids and put them in a barrel and pickled them, and then Saint Nicholas resurrected them. And the pickled kids are fine, and the butcher had to be his servant for the rest of eternity. So I got curious about the other kind of B characters around Santa Claus, and some of them we all know. We talked about them also last week, Krampus and all these kinds of folks. But there's like a whole menagerie of regional Santa Claus friends and friends and enemies, I guess. The premise being that they wanted Santa to give gifts, but because he's a saint, he wasn't allowed to punish. So they had to invent the guy who could punish and who travels around with Santa. And it's funny because in some cases they're pretty close. Santa and the other guy, they're like partners. They show up at your house at the same exact time, and I guess they have just kind of a truce that like one of them's going to give you something cool, and then he's just going to turn and look away as the other one does something bad.
Just like God and the devil. Like you
right.
got Saint Nick, but then you have the other bad guy who's just sort of a functionary. He can't he's there for a reason. He's got a job to do.
That's right. There are a number of others that also range from the Krampus to kind of elves that may or may not be good. There's one that is a pre-Christian house spirit or kobold elf that is named by the Brothers Grimm. And I guess that's kind of the origin of Elves in the Workshop, maybe. I don't know, just speculating. But I do like the idea that there's just kind of like a whole group, like a whole crew of Santa Claus. And I also like that they're not universal. I like that they're regional, because you get Santa who does get to go everywhere, but you can't really expect all these mythical creatures to be everywhere. So I like that he figures out like who's the local cryptid here and how can I rope them into my whole thing one day a year. So I like to imagine, for example, in some other places, we should start adding a little bit to the lore here. In Canada, I don't know, maybe we can have a cool Bigfoot who comes and gives you a slap on the behind or something if you haven't been good. I don't know what. But that's maybe our next task for 2026. People can really do some research. What's your local cryptid who could come and be Santa's evil partner in crime?
I love that there are like different ones, so that when Krampus gets to the border of like Norway or whatever, I don't know where they do Krampus, he has to like hand off the baton to the other bad guy, as he can't cross, he can't go through there. He's so beholden to the nation state,
That's exactly right. Okay, I do have also a little bit more on this particular butcher who has a life of his own. This butcher, there's a lot of wild stories about him and kind of what he comes to symbolize, but I really like this one, where during the siege of Metz in France in 1552, an effigy of King Charles V was burned and dragged through the city. Meanwhile, an association of tanners created a grotesque character, also a tanner, armed with a whip and bound in chains, who punished children. Why they did that, this doesn't say. They just did do that. After Metz was liberated, the charred effigy of Charles V and the tanner character somehow combined into what is now known as the Père Foutard, who is, of course, the name of this butcher. Events surrounding the city's liberation and the burning of the effigy coincided with the passage of St. Nicholas, hence Père Foutard became his bad cop counterpart. So just a lot going on here, layers and layers of symbolism. This big yucky guy, he's out there, and I guess the moral of the story is, if you read something about Santa Claus and you're also reading about something else, you got to be careful, because you might just kind of make them all in the same room every year.
Wow. Well, I hope only Santa Claus comes to my house. I don't want any other cryptids. I don't want any other cryptids to come if they're going to punish me. They're happy. They're welcome to come to my house, but they can't do anything mean to me while they're here is my thing.
That's fair. That is fair. It kind of raises the question, like, why didn't God just kill the Krampus?
We're all asking it, Not such a silly question now.
It's because he has a job to do. So there you have it. Matt, what are you going to do this Christmas? It's coming up. We're recording this before Christmas, but it's right around the corner. What are your big Christmas plans for the holiday?
Let's see. On Christmas Eve, we're going to go to church. On Christmas Day, I don't think we're going to go to church. I feel like that's such a big ask. I know it's a holy holiday. It's a really important one, but I feel like going to church on Christmas is a hard sell to most people. So I'm going to sit at home and play with my toys. That's probably about it. Dean, what are you going to do?
That's great. I'll be going to church every day, multiple times a day from now until January 6th, obviously. And if my priest asks, that's what you can say. That's where I've been the whole time. Also, last year, my wife and I, on Christmas Day, something that we had wanted to cook went bad, and so we couldn't cook it. And we were like, oh no, this is bad news for our Christmas. But we went to an extremely good Muslim restaurant in our neighborhood, and everybody went out of their way to tell us Merry Christmas, because we obviously look like people who do not dine there normally, and it was very sweet and very nice. So we're probably just going to do that again, and that's the thing I'm most excited about for Christmas.
That sounds rad. Actually, okay, speaking of that, though, I did buy a lot of sort of food to make on Christmas. We're going to have a big Christmas dinner. The Aldi over here really knocking it out of the park with this. They have like a big Christmas tofu that you can buy. So I did. And also they have vegan pigs in a blanket, so I got some of those too. So we're going to be having a very vegan Christmas. It's going to be great.
A very vegan Christmas is my favorite Mr. Bean special. Well, there you have it, folks. I think that's going to do it for us. If you're missing some Christian lefty content in this one, I don't know. We used to do a ton of Christmas episodes years ago, and they're all great. They're all back there. I think probably last year we talked about Richard Horsley's book, The Liberation of Christmas, or something like that. Yeah, that's right. They're all there. We talked to anthropologists in the past. I don't know. It's just like we've done this podcast for so long. You can go get that content. There's like 10 years of it now.
Yeah, there's 10 years of that content, and there's not 10 years of bone content. And exactly. I feel like we have to even it out just a little bit.
Yeah, not yet, that is. And Matt, I can sense you're also still timid about it a little bit, and I'm going to make that my project in 2026. I'm going to try to get you over the fear of it. It's going to take some exposure therapy. We'll have to find a couple more crypts to go to, but I feel like we're on the way.
Sounds great. Next time you're in Scotland, we can go to Edinburgh to see St. Andrew's finger or whatever.
Oh, yeah, I'll be doing that. And I do want to find some wet bones, so I'll be looking for those as well.
Keep your head in a swivel for wet bones. Thanks for listening to the Magnificast. If you like what you heard, you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/the Magnificast. If you support us out even $1 a month, you can get an invite to our behind the paywall Discord community where people talk about the babies that they're having. They're posting pictures of rainbows. We're talking about vegan recipes and sometimes other real substantive Christian leftist conversations. It's all great. So you should be a part of that. A lot of people just join and they just lurk, and that's fine. But you could be a not lurker, and you could be talking in there all the time, making your newest best friends. Cool. Our intro music is by Mario Armstrong. Our outro music is by The Illogical Spoon, and we'll see you in the new year.
I don't wanna get up for church in the morning, souls alive. Heaven come to earth and there won't be no church. We'll meet down by the riverside. There we'll swim with all creation. Never get tired, never bored. Don't worry, someday there'll be no dam between us and our Lord. Jackson, keep your hoods up. Keep your hoods up and you stay up late. In Jackson, you keep your hoods up. Well, you keep your hoods up and you stay up late. Oh, don't mind a cold night, but we might mind if you leave too soon. So come on now, it's still early. Beside what else are you gonna do? As we kissed in the alley by the Michigan Theater, fall snow was glowing in the lights of the downtown. Saw a spark in your eyes, I just spoke it. Said we're gonna turn this whole place upside down. Then you said, my dear, do you really mean this? I said, I only know what I feel right now. I said, poets lie,